Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Wednesday, it's June the 10th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And finally, we got another really good trend day. This was a great trend working up. We finally got a break up here and attempted a new high, and then we kind of sold off. And there was some strong support across here, and we bounced off that later in the day. But that's so late in the day, it doesn't really matter anymore. But if you draw your line across there, you can see it. And it's always nice to be able to see it, so I'll put it on there. Um, it doesn't really look, I mean, it's rangy, but most of this was above the EMA, and then most of this later was down below. Still kind of a rangy look to it, but this is still part of the uptrend, and then this is when you had a little correction, and then we bounced again. So I guess let's just draw the line. Sometimes you can't see it without putting it up there. I guess, yeah, that is a double top there. So that is just a range there. So, but let's talk about the trades. Most of your trading should have been done early. These are the kind of days you just get on board and you can add on these things and or exit each time and just take a new trade. I mean, there's a lot of ways to trade these kind of trends, but when you have these kind of days, you need to take advantage of it. Early on, I drew this off the lows and had it a little bit steeper, but my prices kept bouncing, before they would get to the EMA, so I played with it a little bit and ended up adjusting this later in the day. Early on, you would have got the same trades up until about here. Then it started to not look quite right, and that's when I kind of adjusted a little bit. So sometimes you have to adjust your lines on the fly, um, you know, but generally it'll be off the first two swings, but this was more of a spike and a channel, and it was just too steep early on. So it's not a real big spike, but it spiked up and then kind of went into a channel. And you can see the EMA is holding all the way up as well. So this is a nice trend. And if you can catch one or two of these, a couple of them, you get runners, and you can ride those runners a long, long way. But these are the kind of days we wait on. And then you can see it as we got up here late morning and early afternoon, just got boring then. But all the action was this morning, and the market won't go on forever. Usually, it'll stop and consolidate, and that's what happened. We stopped and consolidated, and even though it didn't sell off really, it didn't go any higher. And notice where it consolidated at, around the 2100 area. That's where we've been bouncing above and below for quite a while now. So. But let's back out a little bit and where you can see a little better, and we will talk about the trades and go from there. We really didn't get a trade until right before they opened this morning. Notice that from really 5 o'clock to 8:30, we only made a few tiny bars here. But just prior to the open, I think it's around 8 o'clock or so. I think it was around 8 before I took my first trade. Yeah, you see it's right before 8 o'clock. You get a second entry long. Pull back, first entry, pull back, second entry, right off the EMA. And look at that bar. It opened here, traded down, then traded all the way back and closed when it's very high. Even though that looks like a doji, that's a fairly bullish bar. It's bouncing right off the EMA. Just take that trade. And it actually ticked lower here and went up, and so there's a little bit of a second entry long off the counting off the lows there, but that ended as a doji and couldn't go higher, so I don't really like that one. I think you were better off to wait. Even though there's an upward bias here, it doesn't look like a real strong trend yet. But then it pulls back again right here and gives you another entry, and it broke lower again and then turns and goes out the top. Actually, it didn't break lower there. I thought it did. I could have sworn that broke lower. I guess I was thinking of this one. But anyway, it bounces right there, it goes out the top. Even though this is close to the highs here, this is like a breakout pullback long. But more importantly, notice the new low. There's a pullback. There's a first entry, then there's a pullback, and there's a second entry. So that's a failed second entry short. It's a breakout pullback long. It's right off the EMA. it would have been right off the trend line, no matter how you drew it. So that's a nice setup right there. Then you come up here, you get, notice that new low, pull back first entry, pull back second entry, same thing, another failed second entry short. It's a little different than this one. But it's still a failed second entry short. Prices bounce right off the EMA trend line and give you a second entry long on top of that. So another great setup, and off it goes. Now on a normal day or range day, I probably wouldn't be so interested in that. But on a trend day where everything's going higher and higher, especially when there's lots of little bitty bars that look like dojis and things, this is a strong trend even if it doesn't look like it. And you'll hear me say that a lot. So on these days, you just about have to take every pullback. And forget about, a lot of times you don't even want to have to wait on second entries. If it pulls back to the EMA or the trend line and you get a little small bar, just take the entry. And there's another one. That's a first entry, but it's right off the EMA. This one I went back and forth about whether or not to make it green or not, because it didn't get back to the trend line. It didn't quite touch the EMA there. But I still think, notice that there's a bunch of matching lows there, and it kind of ticked one tick lower. And so it's a little bit of a trap. And it is a pullback to test this area, and then it goes higher. And then it pulls back, and it tests this area. It takes out the break-even stops. This market is so efficient. And where does it bounce again? Right off the EMA. So just about every one of these pullbacks gives you a chance to enter. And again, on normal days or range days, you wouldn't take these trades, but on a strong trend day like this, you have to take them. So, and there's a second entry long there. Again, it's close to the highs, but it's right off the trend line. Then it pulls back, and really, I should have marked that one too. I missed that one. There's another entry right there, and then you get another little pullback and a second entry long right there, same thing. It's hard to see that. Let me make that a little bigger. Actually, it didn't break lower there, but it still, notice it goes up, it pulls back, it tests that trend line again, and when it tests it twice and it holds on a day like this, just jump in there with it. And then you get another second entry long right here. You got a new high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry again, right off the trend line. Off it goes. And then this one, it looked like we were going to get up in the upper trend and keep going. And also, I should have it on here, but I don't. But there's a short-term trend line right up through there. And this is the first break. And you got all those matching bars, and it breaks lower, fails, and turns, and it goes right out the top. Just put your stop right there. That's the same thing as a second entry. And you're looking for it to go to the highs again. And it does. This one's a little more aggressive because it's not off the EMA. It's not off the trend line down here. So you got to be, you're being a little more aggressive by going long there. But it is off the EMA, and a lot of times you'll bounce and get in this upper side and just keep going. And then we finally touch the high again. We pull down. We get a first entry, pull back, and there's a second entry long there. That's not a great signal bar, but it's a double bottom. It's the first break of this trend line, so you figure we're going to test that high. And, you think this thing's probably going to take off again. And the trade works, but you find out there's a trend line working higher here. If you just draw this low one and pull it up, then it starts holding. Then you got to be a little bit concerned. There is a failed second entry short here. Notice the new low, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. That's a failed second entry short, which then you think, again, it may shoot for the highs, but you got this trend channel line up here. And I made this one green because you got to be aware of those highs right there, and you're right into it. So it's a little bit risky. It would have ended up working if you hung on. But I just think that one's, because of all the highs across here, and this being a big bar, I think that one's a little risky. But it is a failed second entry short, and on a strong trend day, generally that's going to take off. So, but then you get another failed second entry short. Notice that little swing low is lower than that one, so you can count it as a new low. First entry, pull back. Second entry, look how bearish that bar is. People that aren't paying attention, that don't understand that there's a little rain. We're trying to you're trying to do a retest of the high, and they're trying to catch a top, and so they think that's a good chance to go short. And really, it's a great chance to enter long. It's another failed second entry short, and this time you're able to get in right at the bottom near the trend line on a little bitty bar, and this one works out pretty quick. And it does pull back and give you another chance to get in, but it's so close to that high again. I didn't even mark that one, and I really didn't even like marking this one. Um, but again, it's a smaller bar at the very low, and you figure this thing will probably keep working until it gets a new high, but it doesn't. So the other thing about this one is I don't know if there's enough room to get out. You want to use a limit order, and that's another reason I circled it in green. Let's just see if you used a stop. You would have gotten in at 0575, and it went to 0650. So see, you would not have gotten out, and you would have got stopped out on that one. So that's why you got to get in with a limit order with enough room to get out before you get back to the last high. And that's what I'm always preaching about, making sure you got room to get out. Back down here, it didn't so much matter because the trend is so strong. But here, the trend is not real strong now. And you can see how much flatter it is. Look how flat the EMA is getting. So by the time you get over here, even though it's working higher still, it's a little bit risky. And they trapped a bunch of people most likely right here. And then they created a little low trap. And notice they tried to go lower 3 times there. And so I like, and there's actually a second entry long right there. So you really could have entered this long, but there's a lot of overlap there. And so I think you were better off to wait. And look what happens. It looks like there's a failed second entry long, which there is a failed second entry long, but all they're doing is setting up the trap to take it back higher. They couldn't work it higher here, so they make it look like they're going to take it lower. And if you're paying attention to these lows across here, you don't go short into that support right there. No matter how bearish that bar looks, because that's the whole idea, is to trick you. And now they got enough people short that they can start running it up, and they know that they're going to all reverse and give it the momentum it takes to push it on back up there to that high they're trying to reach anyway. And so you could have entered here, but I just think it's risky with all the overlap. It did bounce off the low, and it is a second entry long. So if you went in there, I'm okay with that one. My guess is if you did go in there, though, then you're going to get fooled when you see this bar. And so you're better off just to be sitting still right there and kind of wait and see. And you should be, in the back of your head, you should still be thinking, hey, this is a big trend day, and we just had a break, and we don't have a new high yet. We haven't even made a double top yet. And I'm surprised that we only made a double top, but that's good enough for a retest. Sometimes you don't get another one. Then they tried it right before the close, and they couldn't get there again. So there's some strong resistance around 2107.50, so pay attention to that tomorrow if we're working around that area again. And so I like this long here. To be honest, this one's not a bad long either. For whatever reason at the time when it was running live, I didn't like it. I guess there's enough room to get out there. I don't know why I didn't mark that trade. I'm going to go ahead and mark it. I think if you're still trading at that point, I don't see any problem with going in long right there as well. And I would have been thinking about if we could get higher, if we could make a new high, I would be thinking a measured move like that right there. And so I definitely probably would have taken that trade. The main thing you got to be aware of is, do you have enough room to get out before you get here? Maybe there's not enough room. Let me just look at it. If you entered on a stop, you get in at 0650. Yeah, it's just enough room to get out. So, and really I would have been looking at this high to have enough room. So even though we didn't get that last tick, you didn't need it. And that's probably why it sold off. Everybody got their scalp out of it and exited. It was tempting to go short right here, and you could have, I guess, but we still didn't have that new high in place. And I would have, you got to be worried about a trap and then them making this next leg up like this one right here. But when you had the failed second entry long, this is after 2 o'clock too. I went ahead and marked it. But now you got a failed second entry long and everything's underneath the EMA, and that's a bearish reversal bar. So I like that one, knowing that the trend line's probably down here anyway and there's enough room to get out. And you can see it went just far enough and then it bounces again. And now you're working lower. And so I like that short, even though it's after 2 o'clock. I just went ahead and marked it because that's the only short I saw all day that you should have been even remotely interested in. Now this one was tempting. If you would have taken it, would have worked. And we did have the break of this little channel here at a new high, but the main channel we didn't quite get a new high, so I would have still been a little bit leery of that with all that overlap there. If you're being really, really aggressive, you might take that one. But I just think you're better off to wait. I mean, you had all morning, you had all these trades, and I know what happens is people, they sit here and they watch this and they can't get up the gumption to enter. They keep thinking, either that or they're trying to go short every time it makes a new high. And then finally they see this happen and they say, I got to get in now. They start trying to get in here and then it doesn't go anywhere, and maybe they get stopped out, or maybe they get scared out, or they finally enter over here, and then after watching this one keep going high, and then it stops them out. And so I know what happens to people, and what you've got to do is you've got to condition yourself on strong trend, even though that doesn't look real strong because of all the little bars and all the dojis and all the overlap. Look how straight up that is. Look at the EMA. That is a strong trend, and several of these you would have caught runners where prices didn't come back, and you could have. And I'll be honest with you, I like to add on these days on really good. I wouldn't add on these first entries probably, but on all these second entries and any traps, I would add on there. If I still had a runner going, I'd just add a whole new set and let them keep adding up and keep going. That's one way to do it. So I guess that's about it. And that's another reason why I like to trade early, because most of your movement, it's not to say that sometimes you don't get this in the morning and then in the afternoon you get some of this, because it happens. But for the most part, all of your best action is right after the open into about 10 o'clock, 10:30, and then it slows down usually. Today it was right into about 10:15, 10:20, and then it slowed down. And that's generally what happens. So that's another reason I like trading the mornings in the ES. There's more action, especially right after the open. That's when you have a little bit more volatility and a little more movement, and your trading is generally a little bit better, and everything is more reliable. You have less failures and traps, in my opinion. So not much else I can say today. I hope you're having a good week. Hope you took advantage of this trend. If you didn't, next time you see it, hopefully you'll recognize what's going on and get on board and get some of it. And because we don't get a whole lot of these days. I think it was back in January when we were getting days like this almost every day, either up or down, and it was just some unbelievable trading. I think January or February, maybe both, were two of the best months I've ever had ever. And I probably made more money in January than I normally make in a quarter. So, but we had days like this every day. And so, when you get them, you don't ignore them. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.